Gon' vote. Everybody gon' vote. Everybody gon' vote. Everybody gon' vote. Comrade! Labor right, them a go down, bong. Them a go down, bong. Them a go down. Is that? Margie, him a God picking. No hope their work if you touch Margie. Margie, him a God picking. No hope their work if you touch Margie. We now vote for Labour. Orange we a come out in now. If you love the PNP, who no step out for Marky G. Jamaica just come along with we. People time come, people time come, people time is up.
Only thing that's on my mind is who's gonna run this town tonight.
Yeah, I say that we are. Pledge your allegiance.
Who's gonna run this town tonight?
Yeah, I say that we are.
We gonna run this town.
Make the trumpets play. Make the trumpets play.
Called it a massive fraud and one of the largest heists in Jamaica's financial sector. And really and truly, this is documentary level stuff, and maybe one day you'll see a documentary about it on my channel. What do you think? Interested in that? Let me know below, all right? So the question is, what's been happening in the 2 years since this story broke, right? Where are we now? And what's happened to the money from Usain Bolt and the other investors? So first of all, some people, I've seen complaints from some people in terms of how this story has been reported. You know, I'm seeing comments like, so it's only Bolt get robbed, and why we're focusing so much on Bolt and what to the other people them in a case. So let me say this. Now, first of all, this whole thing is horrible, right? I cannot even imagine the kind of distress people are suffering, and some of the people involved in this are elderly people who don't have time to recoup whatever it is they've lost. So that in itself is just tragic, all right? And the amount of money stolen here over a period of time, over about a decade we're hearing, and the number of people affected, yes, all of that makes the story big news. But the fact that Bolt has been involved now puts the story into a whole different stratosphere, people. Come on, we're talking about Usain Bolt, king of track and field, world record holder, and one of the most likable people in track and field. Everybody like Usain. Even now that he's retired, people still want to know what Bolt is up to, you know, what's happening with his business ventures, his music, you know, remember when him did decide to play football, what's happening with his babies, his families. Somebody like Bolt, people are just following everything that happens to him. If a button drop in a world championship relay, all Bolt have to do a post Jaja, and everybody at all, boy, you see what Bolt say. He just continues to be very, very influential. Anyway, the point I'm making is that when you have somebody who is very well known, not just here in Jamaica, but all around the world, the story gets bigger and the reporting does tend to be focused on that person. In this case, Usain Bolt. So this story blew up from the start the way it did because Bolt was involved, and trust me, that's a good thing, right? It means the story was being covered all around the world. It means the authorities were under pressure to make sure something happened, and it means, of course, that the media wouldn't forget the story. So just about a month after the story first broke, so this was in February 2023, remember, we heard somebody had been charged. This somebody was Jean-Ann Panton, who was one of SSL's investment advisors. What the Financial Investigation Division told us at the time, they said they had a joint investigation going with the police fraud squad. They said Panton had been charged with breaches of the Larceny Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act, the Forgery Act, and the Cyber Crimes Act. So she had allegedly signed a confession, and she said she used various mechanisms to take money from clients, that she created false statements because people are getting statements, remember, that said the money was in their account and growing. And those statements were false. Now, the FID, Financial Investigation Division, said at the time that this was a really complex case. And they said it was complex because of the number of accounts, the types of accounts, the number and types of transactions, the fact that this had been going on for over a decade. Then now in December 2023, we got another update from the Financial Investigation Division. Again, they said the complexity of the investigation can't be understated. They said they were investigating matters going right back to the inception, the start of SSL in 2006. And at the time, they said the evidence was showing that over 200 accounts had been affected and that what they called a staggering amount exceeding 30 million US dollars had been defrauded, right? Now, Bolt alone is reported to have lost 12 million US dollars. And that, folks, is over $1 billion Jamaican, if my calculations are right. So let me tell you what we know right now. Because people have been asking, hold on, can't she want to do this? Has she want to thief so much money? Nobody else not involved. What is going to be happening? And I spoke to former Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark, in October 2024, his very last day in office as Finance Minister. And I asked him about the SSL thing because, finance is his ministry and so on. And this is what he said. He said, what I've not been satisfied with is the pace at which that has moved. He said, we have investigators, police, a DPP, courts. All of those are independent authorities. I can't instruct. He said this is not a criticism, but he said he had one opportunity to pour out his heart. He said, I feel hurt and disappointed that I put that effort in. I've taken major risk in getting forensic auditors from the United Kingdom to do a massive investigation. And he said that file had been put to the DPP from late 2023. Nothing has come of it, and people are looking and wondering what's going on. He said, I've done my part. So a few days ago, folks, I caught up with Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, and asked her for an update on this. First of all, she never happy when she hear what Dr. Clark did have to say. She said it was unfortunate he hadn't contacted her office for an update, and this is what she said. She said perhaps due to an excess of enthusiasm or youthful exuberance, some of the investigators may have had amnesia when advising members of the public or even Mr. Clark as to what's been happening. So Paula not talk with water in her mouth. She said, by the way, that her office had set up an SSL task force just to deal with this case, headed by a senior prosecutor, Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, the person who deals with financial crime in her office, and that it has 4 lawyers on that task force. Now, she says her office wrote to the investigators on October 23, 2024. She said it's an extremely voluminous exercise with sent a letter indicating all of the matters outstanding. She said it seems there are some investigators who thought by waving a magic wand and speaking it into being that they had enough to go before the courts. But she said since we are the ones saddled with prosecuting cases of this nature to the required standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, and we're not in this thing to get a sound bite, we have to make sure, especially in a complex matter like this, that we have adequate information. So she said there were 12 things that were still needed from the investigators. And she said the FID wrote back to them in December 30, 2024 about the 12 things. She also said there's one that is absolutely critical. And she said what she's been told is that the investigators have had to go through hundreds of boxes and material from SSL to find this critical thing. She said at the office of the DPP, they've already prepared a draft legal opinion. She says about 40 pages waiting for her to sign off on it. But she says her prosecutors know how detailed and thorough she is, and that they're also detailed and thorough. So she says there is a yawning gap, legally speaking, in the opinion that can only be covered by getting the critical documentation from the FID. And she said that is what they're waiting on. She said they have got some of the 12 things, but not this particular critical document. And of course, she wouldn't tell me exactly what that was. She said, we will not die on the altar of expedience to give others a soundbite. She said, we answer to the public interest. She said her deputy, who is in charge of financial crimes, did some research as to what happens in the USA in terms of matters of a similar nature, and that they found that the average in some areas is 5 years from the time of the offense to the time it goes to court. And she went on to say, we do not run a patty shop, and we are not a banana republic, so we can only ask for patience. So the DPP is saying, look, things are still outstanding. There's one in particular that's critical, and until they get it, they can't deliver their ruling as to whether or not anybody else should be charged. So that's it for the status of the criminal investigation and whether anybody else is going to be charged. Answer is, right now we don't know. What about the money though? So here's the thing, the company was being wound up, meaning it was being closed because of all the shenanigans, right? And in April 2024, we did get an update from the finance ministry. So this is what they had said at the time, that assets in the company were being transferred to clients. But of course, those are the assets that they never thief. And the finance ministry said none of the 200 accounts reportedly affected by the SSL fraud have recovered any part of what was lost due to the fraud. And they said for their part, for the government to try to help to recover money, they said there's a process, right, that comes under Jamaica's Proceed of Crimes Act that would be done by the Financial Investigation Division. They call this a benefit investigation, and they said that can only start, listen to this, after criminal convictions. But they said civil proceedings are open to aggrieved parties, meaning the people who lost money, and can be started at any time. All right, so just a couple of things here. The government agency can't start asset recovery until after people are charged, after you have a trial, after you have not just a trial, but convictions. Now, remember, they keep telling us this is a very complex case. Just one person arrested so far. And we have to see, as I was saying, if anybody else is going to be charged, then you have to have the whole trial process starting, getting underway, trial, and a conviction has to be had. Now, we're talking, I think, several years at least, and I'm probably being generous. This is going to go on for a while. But individual investors can sue, and we do know that both lawyers have been active. They've been busy filing documents in court. Now, they're understandably keeping a low profile on this. We're not going to know much about what is going on, I think, until things get a little bit further.
Ball out! Whoa, yo, yo, yo. We need help, Jesus. Jamaica need help. Shift the parliament. Shift the election. Shift everything. Remove them out there. Take out the cockroach. Take out the thief. Take out the criminal them. Take out the thief them. Take out the murderer them. Take out the gang leader them. Out of parliament. Take them out from Portland. Take them out. I hear Portland. Me I go to Portland. Why me I travel to Portland? Take out somebody, man or woman,